Hi there, I'm Claudia Lash, and I am ready to start some decorative stitching on a piece that I wanted to show you how I actually do the stitching. Before I begin though, I want to show you one of the things that's really helpful to have around your machine, and that is alcohol. And these are little tiny alcohol pads that when you have been stitching for a while, because you may have fusible, well, you probably will have fusible on the back of your fabric, it sometimes will cause your needle to get little fibers on it. So oftentimes I will need to pull one of these alcohol pads out and clean my needle off. And while we're talking about that, make sure that you take good care of your sewing machine. You want to oil it and have it in good shape so that you can do these nice fancy stitches. Okay, I've picked stitch 603, which is going to, it has a center spine, and it's going to go over the spine on each side, sort of a line type of look that makes it sort of look a little feathery. I usually start somewhere where there's going to be a long stretch, and this looks like as good a place as any. So this part is where I'm focusing. This is the center of my foot, and that's where I want my needle to go down. So I'm going to push my needle down and bring it back up. I'm going to pull up that bobbin thread and pull it to the top. You don't want to leave your bobbin thread at the bottom, because it will make a big mess, or it can make a big mess. Then I'm going to go back to my machine. I'm going to start again at the front. On my machine, if I poke there, it takes me back to the beginning stitch. And then my foot pedal is running away from me. Okay. So now I'm going to take a stitch, and I'm holding the bobbin and the threads for a few minutes. And now I'm watching how the stitch is going, trying to keep this center point always right along the center line of this yellow fabric. As you stitch, you will sort of start memorizing what's happening. And that's important, because when you stop and turn, you need to know what's going to happen next. It's also helpful on your machine, because on my machine it shows me, but I am usually watching so closely right here, I don't really look up there unless I need to. But this will, I am seeing that it goes over, over, little stitch, then we have a bigger stitch. Now it's 2 stitches. Down, over, over, little bitty stitch, bigger, double. So I pretty much know what's going to happen next every time I'm watching. And mainly, I am just watching where I'm sewing. Now, if you're on a long stretch like this, you can speed it up a little bit. It doesn't hurt. When you get down to, say, this section right down here, then I will definitely have to watch and move it just ever so slightly as I go around there. So slow down when you need to, speed up when you need to. Every stitch is a little bit different. There may be a time when you might have to rip out some stitches. We've all done it. It's okay. And sometimes you'll learn, and if you're just beginning this, don't worry so about if you've got something that didn't match up just the way you wanted it here, because that's the way we are when we're learning. They're not going to match perfectly. It's nothing to lose sleep over. When somebody is looking at this from a long way off, they aren't going to see any mistakes. When you are doing fancy stitching on your whatever you're working on, sometimes you have to make some changes. For this stitch, my needle position was in the center because it comes down and jumps in and back and in on it, but the needle position in the center works well. When you're doing this stitch, which is like a double blanket stitch, it comes down and goes back and comes down and jumps in and jumps back and jumps in and jumps back. Well, since you're going on the very edge of your fabric or your different fabric, you need to move your needle position from the center over to the far right. So I thought I would show you. Notice on this machine, this is where I can see my needle position. And I have to move it. There's a thing right here, a little button. So I push this all down until this comes up at the 5. Every machine might be a little different here, but you do need to move the needle position to make your stitches do better. And while we're on the moving things on your machine, right now my machine is set at 3.5 width and 3.5 length. On this stitch, this is what most of the stitches are. They are 3.5, 3.5 width and length. But then when I get down to these little smaller points, I turn both the length and the width down to 2.5. And you could even go to 2.0. And if it's a very small thing, of course, you probably wouldn't be using a double stitch if it's a real tiny thing. But you can take them as small as you need to go, just to make them fit nicely around small areas.